The champagne glass in Patricia Aldridge's hand looked harmless until she lifted it toward me like a weapon. 65 people sat inside the private dining room of Aldridge Country Club. White tablecloths. Tall candles. Silver forks lined up like soldiers. The kind of room where people lowered their voices even when they laughed. Patricia stood at the head of the table in a navy blazer with her pearl brooch pinned above her heart. She smiled at her guests first, then at her son, then at me. That was when the room changed. "My son could have married a doctor," she said, her voice soft and clear. "A lawyer. Someone with a real family." Every fork stopped. Ethan's hand tightened around mine under the table. Patricia turned her glass toward me. But he chose her. I felt every face in that room turn toward me. Country club friends. Business partners. Cousins I barely knew. Servers frozen near the wall. And in the far corner, June Reeves, the woman who raised me when no one else wanted to, set her napkin down very slowly. Patricia kept smiling. She thought she had built the perfect moment. She thought I would cry. She thought I would run. What she did not know was that my phone was already connected to the 60-inch screen behind her. And inside my clutch was the video she never meant anyone to see. I did not grow up with a family name that opened doors. I grew up learning which floors creaked in strange houses. I learned how to pack quickly. I learned how to smile at adults who had already decided I was temporary. My mother died when I was 7. I never knew my father. By 14, I had lived in 3 foster homes, each one with different rules and the same quiet message. Do not get comfortable. Then June Reeves opened her front door. She was a retired teacher with soft gray hair, sharp eyes, and a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and laundry soap. She handed me a glass of lemonade and said, "You can stay as long as you need, Morgan." No one had ever said that to me before. So I stayed. I studied under her yellow kitchen light. I worked night shifts at the county hospital. I cleaned exam rooms, carried trays, answered call bells, and saved every dollar that did not go to rent or books. Scholarships paid for nursing school. My aching feet paid for everything else. By 31, I was a pediatric nurse practitioner with my own clinic in Leesburg, Virginia. 12 exam rooms. For staff members. A waiting room painted the same warm yellow as June's kitchen. It was not a mansion. It was not a legacy wall. But it was mine. Then I met Ethan Aldridge. His sister Caroline brought her little boy, Noah, into my clinic one rainy Tuesday night. He was 4 years old, gasping for air, his lips turning blue from a severe asthma attack. Caroline was shaking so badly she could not sign the intake form. I took Noah back myself. Nebulizer. Oxygen. Calm voice. Steady hands. By the time his breathing evened out, Caroline was crying into a paper towel. I sat beside her until she could breathe too. 3 days later, she called the clinic. "My brother wants to take you to dinner," she said. "He says it is to thank you, but he is terrible at pretending." Ethan was not what I expected from the Aldridge family. He had walked away from his father's real estate business to study marine life in the Chesapeake Bay. He talked too much about coral and tide levels, and he laughed at himself when he realized it. On our first dinner, he asked about my clinic, not my past. When I told him I grew up in foster care, he did not tilt his head or soften his voice like people do when they are trying to be kind. He just listened. Like my life was not a wound. Like it was a foundation. 14 months later, he proposed at Cape Henry, with salt wind in my hair and a small ring in his shaking hand. I said yes before he finished asking. June cried for 4 straight minutes when I called her. Patricia Aldridge went silent for 4 seconds. "Well," she said at last. "Congratulations, I suppose." The first time I met her, she looked at my shoes before she looked at my face. They were navy flats, scuffed at the toe, because I had come straight from a 12-hour shift. Patricia stood in the doorway of the Aldridge house in pearls and pressed linen, smiling like a person who had already made her decision. "Morgan," she said. "How lovely. Ethan tells me you are a nurse." "Nurse practitioner," I said. "Pediatric." "Of course." That was how Patricia spoke. Soft words. Sharp edges. Dinner was served in a room with 12 chairs, oil paintings, and silver that looked older than the town I grew up in. Her husband, Garrett, sat at the end of the table and barely lifted his eyes from his phone. Patricia asked about my parents. I told her the truth in the plain way I always did. My mother was gone. My father had never been part of my life. I grew up in foster care. Patricia set down her fork. How brave of you. It sounded like a compliment. It was not. After dinner, she walked me through the hallway where framed Aldrich photographs covered the walls. Weddings, graduations, groundbreakings, for generations staring out from polished frames. This land has been ours since 1952, she said. Then near the front door, she touched my arm and leaned close. You were never going to be one of us, Morgan. I hope you understand that. I smiled. I thanked her for dinner. Then I drove home with both hands shaking on the steering wheel. After the engagement, Patricia took over the wedding before I could choose a flower. She booked the country club. She hired the florist. She chose the cake, the string quartet, the seating chart, the guest list. 200 people, most of them strangers to me. When I asked if June, my foster siblings, and 2 nursing school friends could sit near the front, Patricia gave me a warm smile. Of course, dear. We just need to be careful with space. Space. At a wedding with 200 chairs. The first mistake looks small. June called me one afternoon confused. Honey, why does my invitation say the wedding is on the 14th? My stomach tightened. The wedding was on the 21st. I checked the digital proofs. Every invitation for Patricia's guests had the correct date. Every invitation from my side had the wrong one. Patricia blamed the printer. These things happen with large orders, she said. They do happen. Just not like that. I paid to reprint them myself. Then I started saving everything. Screenshots, emails, printer confirmations, date stamps. I did not know what I would need them for. I only knew that women like Patricia did not make mistakes unless they could use them. Then came the caterer. Her name was Dana. She called me 3 weeks before the wedding, her voice careful. Morgan, I need to confirm something. Your mother-in-law asked us to reduce dinner service for several tables. What tables? A pause. The bride's side. I closed my eyes. Dana spoke lower. She said, and I am sorry to repeat this, that there was no need to feed street kids a 5-course meal. Street kids. 2 words. I was sitting in my clinic parking lot with the engine running, still wearing my white coat. A mother and child walked past my windshield, the little girl holding a sticker from her appointment. For a second I was 14 again, standing in someone else's kitchen, trying not to take up too much space. Then I opened my eyes. Restore the full service, I said. Send me the bill. That night I called June. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, Baby, that woman is not planning a wedding. She is planning to erase you. June was right. Patricia was too precise for cruelty to be random. Wrong dates for my guests. Fewer meals for my tables. A guest list full of her friends. A wedding that felt less like a celebration and more like a stage. I just did not know what show she was preparing. Until Ethan's old iPad lit up on our kitchen counter. He had left it there before going out on a research boat. I needed the wedding budget spreadsheet, and he had told me the password without thinking. The screen opened. Before I could tap the file, a message dropped from the top. Aldrich family chat. Morgan does not need to know about the Holt arrangement. I stopped breathing. The message sat there for a moment, bright and ugly. Then I touched it. The chat opened. For names. Patricia. Garrett. Vivian Holt. Sloan Holt. I knew Vivian. She was one of Patricia's closest friends. A real estate woman with perfect hair and a voice that always sounded amused. Sloan was her daughter. Beautiful. Polished. The kind of woman Patricia thought looked right beside her son. I scrolled. The chat had been active for 11 months. Long before Ethan proposed. Long before I knew there was anything to fight. The first message from Patricia said, Ethan is seeing that nurse. It will not last. Vivian replied, Sloan has been asking about him. Should I set up dinner? Patricia wrote back, give it time. He will come around. He did not come around. He chose me. And that was when the messages changed. Patricia called our engagement a disaster. Vivian called me a stray. Garrett never defended me. He only wrote short, nervous lines. Be careful, Pat. Not stop. Not this is wrong. Just be careful. Then I found the reason. A land deal. $4.2 million. Holt Development had the property. Aldridge Real Estate had the permits and county connections. Patricia wanted a merger sealed by marriage. Sloane was supposed to be the bride. Ethan was supposed to be the bridge. And I was the problem in the way. Then I saw Patricia's plan. The rehearsal dinner. A toast. Public humiliation. She believed if she shamed me in front of everyone, I would break down, call off the wedding, and disappear before morning. I set the iPad down and walked into the bathroom. I locked the door and sat on the cold tile floor. I wanted to, but old survival habits rose up before the tears could. Breathe. Stay quiet. Watch. Think. When I stood, I washed my face, went back to the kitchen, and took screenshots of everything. Every message. Every date. Every insult. Every mention of the deal. Then I erased the read notification and set the iPad back where Ethan had left it. For 2 days I said nothing. I went to work. I checked fevers, listened to lungs, stitched a small cut above a little boy's eyebrow, and smiled when his mother thanked me. That is what I had learned to do. Hold steady when things hurt. On the second afternoon, Caroline texted me. Can we meet somewhere private? I need to show you something. We met at a small coffee shop in Purcellville, far enough from the Aldridge house that Patricia would not appear by accident. Caroline was already in a corner booth, pale, with untouched water in front of her. Morgan, she said. I know about the chat. My throat tightened. I should have told you sooner. I was scared. She pushed an iPad across the table. But I found this. And you need it. She opened a folder marked FaceTime recordings. One video. 8 minutes and 43 seconds. Mom doesn't know it's saved, Caroline whispered. Dad turned on auto-recording for some legal call months ago. Nobody turned it off. She pressed play. Patricia appeared on the screen, sitting in her living room with a crystal tumbler on the coffee table. Vivian was on FaceTime laughing. Patricia lifted an imaginary champagne glass. My son could have married a doctor, she practiced, smiling. A lawyer. Someone from a real family. Instead, he chose her. My skin went cold. Vivian laughed. And then I point right at her, Patricia said. In front of everyone. Can you imagine her face? She leaned back and took a drink. She will run. Foster kids always run when it gets hard. By Monday, Sloane's engagement photos will be on the mantle, and the deal closes by March. Caroline covered her mouth. I kept watching. At minute 6, Patricia said, We do not let street kids sit at the Aldridge table. It is time everyone knew that. The coffee shop kept moving around us. Cups clinked. Someone laughed near the counter. Milk hissed under steam. But the world inside me had gone very still. Caroline reached across the table and took my hand. She is my mother, she said, voice breaking. But you are family too. I could not let her do this. I looked at the video, then at Caroline. Send it to me. That night I showed Ethan everything. The screenshots first. He sat on the edge of our bed, scrolling in silence. His face changed slowly, like a light leaving a room. By the time he reached the messages about Sloane, his jaw was tight. She planned this before I proposed, he said. Yes. He stood and reached for his phone. I am calling her. No. He turned toward me, hurt and angry. If you call her now, she will delete everything, I said. She will cry. She will say I turned you against her. By tomorrow night, everyone will hear her version first. His hand dropped. Then what do we do? I opened the video. Patricia's face filled the screen. Ethan watched his mother rehearse the destruction of our wedding like a toast at a charity gala. When the video ended, he did not speak for a long time. Then he took my hand. Together, he said. Together. The rehearsal dinner came 48 hours later. I wore a simple navy dress and the thin silver chain June gave me when I graduated nursing school. In the mirror, I saw the little girl I used to be. The one who never knew which home would last. Then I saw the woman I had become. The country club dining room was already full when Ethan and I arrived. Patricia had arranged every chair, every candle, every name card. She had placed herself at the head table directly in front of the 60-inch screen. She did not know that screen was waiting for her. June sat near the back, steady and quiet. Caroline sat near the side, hands folded tightly in her lap. Garrett avoided my eyes. Dinner moved like a dream I had already lived through. Soup, steak, laughter that did not touch me. Patricia's friends smiled without knowing my name. My phone sat inside my clutch, already connected. Dessert arrived. Patricia stood. She lifted her champagne glass. The room went quiet. She began with a sweet story about Ethan as a boy building sandcastles on the beach. People laughed. Ethan stared at his plate. Then Patricia's voice changed. As his mother, I must be honest. Her eyes found mine. My son could have married a doctor, a lawyer, someone with a real family. Ethan's hand closed around mine. Patricia raised the glass toward me. But he chose her. The room froze. I let the silence stretch. Then I stood. Patricia, I said, my voice calm. That was honest. Her smile flickered. I opened my clutch and took out my phone. So I think everyone deserves the full story. The screen behind her flashed blue. Patricia turned. Her face drained of color. Morgan, she whispered, sit down. I looked at her, then at the room she had chosen, the guests she had gathered, the moment she had built to break me. You chose here, I said. Then I pressed play. The screen behind Patricia filled with her own living room. For 2 long seconds the video buffered. No one moved. Then Patricia's recorded voice came through the speakers, smooth and bright. Let me practice one more time, Viv. I want to get the wording just right. Every head in the room turned toward the screen. Patricia stood beneath it with the real champagne glass still in her hand. Her back was stiff. Her pearl brooch caught the candlelight, but her face had lost every bit of its color. On the screen, she sat on her cream sofa with a crystal tumbler on the table beside her. She lifted an imaginary glass and smiled. My son could have married a doctor, a lawyer, someone from a real family. Instead, he chose her. A sound moved through the room. Not quite a gasp. Not quite a whisper. More like 65 people understanding at once that they had not just heard a bad toast. They had witnessed a trap. Vivian's voice came from the speakers. And then what? Patricia's recorded laugh filled the dining room. Then I point right at her in front of everyone. Can you imagine the look on her face? The real Patricia whispered, turn it off. No one moved. On screen she leaned back, proud of herself, pleased with the cruelty she had dressed as honesty. She will cry right there at the table, the recorded Patricia said. She will run. Foster kids always run when it gets hard. June rose slowly from her chair in the back corner. She did not speak. She did not need to. The woman who had taken me in when I was 14 stood there with both hands pressed against the table, looking at Patricia with a kind of quiet fury that made the whole room feel smaller. The video kept playing. Patricia took a sip from her tumbler. By Monday, Sloane's engagement photos will be on the mantel, she said. And the whole deal closes by March. Vivian laughed again. 4.2 million. Not bad for a rehearsal dinner speech. That was when the room changed completely. People turned toward Vivian. Sloane's face went pale. She looked at her mother first, then at Patricia, then at Ethan, as if she were trying to find one clean piece of truth in a room full of rot. Patricia's hand shook so hard the champagne trembled inside the glass. Then came the line that cut through everything. We do not let street kids sit at the Aldrich table, Viv. It is time everyone knew that. The video ended. The screen went black. The dining room stayed silent. Not polite silence. Not shocked silence. The kind of silence that comes after something hidden finally breaks open, and everyone knows there is no way to put it back. Patricia turned from the screen slowly. Her mouth opened then closed. She looked at Ethan, but he did not move toward her. She looked at Garrett, but he stared down at the tablecloth. She looked at Vivian, but Vivian was gripping her purse like she wanted to disappear through the floor. At last, Patricia found her voice. That was taken out of context. A fork hit a plate somewhere in the room. Ethan stood. No, he said. One word. Quiet. Final. Patricia's eyes filled with tears, but they were not the kind of tears that come from guilt. They were the kind that come when a person who has controlled every room for 30 years suddenly cannot control this one. Ethan, she said softer now, I did this for you. He looked at her like he was seeing a stranger wearing his mother's face. You planned to humiliate the woman I love in front of our family. I was protecting your future. You were protecting a deal. Patricia's lips tightened. You do not understand what families like ours have to manage. That sentence landed badly. Sandra, one of Patricia's country club friends, pushed back from the table and stood. She had asked me about my clinic earlier that night. Now she looked at Patricia with a hand over her mouth, not hiding shock anymore but disgust. Ethan turned to his father. Dad, he said, you knew. Garrett lifted his head. He looked older than he had 10 minutes earlier. Smaller too. I knew she was upset, he said. Ethan's face hardened. That is not what I asked. Garrett looked at the black screen behind Patricia. Then at the guests. Then at the glass in his wife's hand. I saw the chat, he said. Patricia snapped toward him. Garrett. His shoulders dropped. I saw enough. Ethan nodded once, but the movement looked painful. You let her do it. Garrett did not answer. That was his answer. Sloane stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. I did not know about the money, she said, her voice breaking. I knew Mom wanted me near Ethan. I knew she kept saying things would work out. But I did not know this. Vivian grabbed her wrist. Sloane, sit down. Sloane pulled away. No. You used me too. Vivian's face went stiff, the same fake calm Patricia wore when she wanted to seem graceful. This is not the place. Sloane looked around the room with wet eyes. That is what you both always say when the truth becomes inconvenient. No one corrected her. I had not moved since the video ended. My phone was still in my hand. The screen had gone dark. I could feel my own heartbeat, but my hands were steady. Patricia turned to me. You planned this, she said. I looked at her champagne glass, then at the screen, then back at her. No, Patricia. You planned this. Her face twisted. You recorded me. You recorded yourself. I only let people hear what you said. Her tears came faster now. You have no idea what you have done to this family. I took one step forward. I know exactly what you tried to do to mine. The room went still again. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. I grew up without a last name that protected me. I know what it feels like to be placed at a table where people wish you were not there. I know what it feels like to hear adults decide your worth before you have even spoken. Patricia looked away. I kept going. But I also know what family is. It is June leaving the porch light on when I worked late. It is Caroline telling the truth even when it hurt. It is Ethan taking my hand instead of asking me to make peace with cruelty. I looked around the room. And it is not a land deal. It is not a pearl brooch. It is not a wall full of old photographs if no one in those photographs ever taught you how to be kind. Patricia's mouth trembled. For once she had no polished answer. Ethan stepped beside me. We are leaving, he said. Patricia's head snapped up. You cannot walk out of your own rehearsal dinner. Ethan looked at the table, the flowers, the candles, the faces that had come to watch us celebrate and had instead watched his mother expose herself. This was never ours. He took my hand. Caroline stood too. Then June walked from the back of the room toward me. Her steps were slow, but her face was steady. When she reached my side, she placed one hand on my shoulder. Patricia looked at her like she had just noticed her for the first time. June met her eyes. You call children like mine street kids, she said. But I have spent my life watching children survive adults like you. Patricia flinched. June did not wait for a reply. The four of us walked out together. Behind us voices rose. Chairs scraped. Vivian hissed something at Sloane. Garrett called Ethan's name once, but Ethan did not turn around. The lobby outside was cool and quiet. The marble floor shone under soft lights. Through the closed dining room doors, Patricia's voice broke through in sharp pieces, trying to explain, trying to recover, trying to make the room hers again. But the room had already left her. Outside, the night air touched my face. For the first time all evening, I breathed. Ethan stopped beside me in the parking lot and turned toward the country club. The windows glowed behind him, bright and expensive and empty in a way I had not noticed before. I am sorry, he said. I shook my head. You did not do this. I should have seen it sooner. I looked at him then. Children learn to excuse their parents before they learn to question them. His eyes filled. June squeezed my shoulder. Caroline wiped her cheeks and gave a small broken laugh. So, she said, what happens tomorrow? Ethan looked at me. I already knew the answer. We get married, I said. Not there. Not under Patricia's flowers. Not in front of 200 strangers she had chosen. Not inside a room where my side of the family was treated like an inconvenience. We stayed up until 2 in the morning making calls. Caroline handled the florist and told them there had been a change of venue. Ethan called his closest friends. June called my foster siblings, and when one of them started crying on the phone, June cried with her and still managed to give directions. By sunrise we had a garden. It belonged to an old farmhouse outside Middleburg, with a stone terrace and roses climbing over a wooden arbor. The owner knew Ethan from a coastal cleanup fundraiser, and opened the space without asking for anything except a promise that we would send photos. At noon I stood in a small upstairs room with June behind me, fastening the same silver chain around my neck. The clasp stuck like it always did. June muttered at it under her breath. I laughed. The sound surprised both of us. She met my eyes in the mirror. There you are, she said. The wedding had 40 guests. Not 200. 40. People who knew my name. People who came because they loved us, not because Patricia had placed them on a seating chart. My foster sister Danielle drove 4 hours and arrived with mascara already running. Caroline stood on Ethan's side in a pale blue dress, holding one white flower and looking like someone who had finally chosen where she belonged. Patricia and Garrett were not invited. No one asked why. Before the vows, June stepped forward with a folded paper in her hand. She adjusted her reading glasses and looked at me. I did not give birth to Morgan, she said, but I watched her become my daughter one ordinary day at a time. My throat tightened. She came to me quiet, careful, and tired of promises that did not last. So I made her a different kind of promise. Not a loud one. Not a fancy one. Just this. I would show up. June looked at Ethan. That is family. Showing up until someone finally believes they are worth staying for. Ethan nodded, his eyes red. Then June looked back at me. You were never a girl with no family. You were a girl waiting for the right one. Not because Patricia had hurt me. Because June had seen me. Ethan and I said our vows under the roses. When he kissed me, 40 people clapped.